Hello, everyone. We're just bringing people in from the waiting room, so please bear with us as people join the webinar, and we'll start in a moment. Thank you for your patience. Okay, I think I can start. Hello and welcome to this AFSEE application webinar. I'm delighted to see so many people here online with us. And we are going to go over the application process for the AFSEE program, the Atlantic Fellows for Social and Economic Equity program. On this slide, you can see the order in which we'll proceed. There'll be some introductions by the panel members, some information about how, where, and when to apply, some application tips to help you strengthen your application, information about the selection process and where to seek advice and help. And then at the end, we will have some time for questions and answers from the people attending. So next slide, please. So this webinar is being recorded, and barring any technical difficulties, we hope to make this webinar available on our website and our YouTube channel. If you have questions, please type them into the Q&A panel, and we will strive to answer as many questions as we can within the time frame allotted. We'd be very grateful if you could add your name and where you're based in listing your question. And as I said, we will try to answer as many as possible. So I'm Professor Armina Ishkanian, and I'm the Executive Director of the AFSEE program and also a professor in the Department of Social Policy at the LSE. I'm delighted to be joined with my colleagues Sarah and Tom, and I'm going to ask Sarah and Tom to please introduce themselves. Sarah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Honkanen. I'm Program Officer at AFSEE, and I look forward to answering all your questions today. Tom?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom. I work in LSE's Graduate Admissions Office, and I help the AFSEE team with all aspects of the application process throughout the year.
Thank you both. Could we please have the next slide? Thank you. So, as a program, we are based at the London School of Economics in the International Inequalities Institute, and our motto is that inequality is not inevitable, and our program brings together research, education, and practice to think about how we can use collective leadership to create a better, more equitable world. So our program is a values-led program, and our values are fairness, commitment, curiosity, kindness, and courage. And this informs the design of the curriculum and our programming both during the active fellowship year as well as during the senior fellowship period, or the lifelong portion of the fellowship, which begins once fellows graduate from the active fellowship year. So those who are applying apply to AFSEE via the LSE's Graduate Admissions System, and they submit an application form and provide all supporting documents through the Graduate Admissions portal. So those would include references as well as transcripts. In order to submit your application, please follow the link that's on the slide, which is also available on our webpage. And I'm delighted to say that applications are now open, but they will close, and this is a hard deadline, on the 16th of January 2026 at 5 p.m. GMT. When I say it's a hard deadline, that means that we will not be accepting any late applications. So one of the top tips is to start work on your applications early and ensure that you submit well in advance, because we cannot accept any late applications. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to hand over to Sarah.
Thank you, Armina. I will now run through what you need to do to complete your online application form. Firstly, you will need to nominate 2 referees by providing their contact details in the online application form. And once you have completed the references section of your online application, your referees will automatically receive a reference request email from LSE asking them to submit their reference via LSE online referee portal. You will also need to upload your academic transcripts from your previous qualification. And if you are applying to non-residential track and do not hold an undergraduate degree, you will need to upload a document that states that you cannot upload a transcript as you do not hold an undergraduate degree. You are also required to upload your statement of academic purpose and up-to-date CV. How to write a good statement of academic purpose and CV will be discussed in the next slides. Lastly, you will need to take the necessary steps to prove that you meet the minimum English language requirements. And depending on your situation, you may be required to take an English language test. And just as a reminder to everyone, the English language requirement for the residential track is higher, and for the non-residential track, it is standard. And please also note that applicants are not required to sit an English language test before they submit their application. However, successful applicants who have not met the English language requirements can only take their place in the program once they have achieved the required test score. So therefore, we expect applicants to check whether they need to take the English language test when they apply, and also check where and when these tests can be taken. So it's very important to check this information in advance, because sometimes the tests are not held often, and delays in meeting these requirements can sometimes lead into visa delays. So if you receive an offer and you are set an English language condition, please book your test at your earliest opportunity. And also just to note that AFSEE will reimburse the cost of your English language test by offer holders if you are set an English language requirement as a condition of your entry. Please visit the LSE English language requirement webpage to check how to meet the minimum English language requirements. Next slide, please. And I'll hand over to Tom.
Thanks very much, Sarah. So today I'm going to talk you through how to put together a strong application for the residential and non-residential programs. So here on your screens is an outline of what we'll discuss. First, we'll cover how to write a strong statement of academic purpose. Then I'll explain what a competitive CV looks like. I'll then talk about transcripts, which are particularly important for those of you who may be considering applying to the residential stream. And then finally, I'll talk about how to ensure your references will be of good quality and work in your favour. Next slide, please. So let's start with the statement of academic purpose. So some of you may already know this as a personal statement, but we at LSE like to refer to this as a statement of academic purpose, because we notice that the personal in personal statement may give the wrong idea of what's expected. It's common for many applicants to assume that their statement should be filled with personal stories or anecdotes, but it's crucial that applicants understand that selectors are really looking for strong evidence of academic suitability, and in the case of AFSEE, evidence that your professional experience is relevant and matches AFSEE expectations. That's not to say there can't be personal elements. There may be personal elements to the statement, but it's important that you always bring it back to why you're suitable for the programme. So the first thing to consider then is to keep your statement between 1,000 and 1,500 words. Try to be concise and focus mainly on your academic interests and any goals you want to achieve through completing the programme. Selectors want to see that you've thought carefully about applying to the programme, and they want to be convinced that both you and the programme are right for each other. To do this, you need to be very clear and sure about the reasons that you're applying. So what do you stand to gain from the fellowship? And also, just as importantly, what will you bring to the fellowship? Before or during the process of writing the statement, it can be helpful to quickly jot down one or two, possibly even three, reasons you've decided to apply. This can be helpful in reminding you of what should matter as you write, as you go along. So selectors want to see that you can engage with the details of the programme, but especially that you follow the specific guidance for writing your AFSEE statement on the website. For applicants to the non-residential track, you'll need to highlight an area of socioeconomic inequality that you currently engage in. You should also give concrete and convincing examples of how you've contributed to projects that seek to address inequalities, making sure you explain the nature of the project you want to undertake during the fellowship, and be sure it aligns with at least one of the International Inequalities Institute research themes. These themes can be found on the III website. At the end of your statement of academic purpose, you should clearly explain in 2 paragraphs the project that you are planning to undertake as part of the non-residential programme. And finally, remember to explain the goals you want to achieve within 5 years of completing the programme. For those interested in the residential track, it's very much the same guidance. But instead of detailing a project idea, you should clearly and concisely explain in 1 or 2 paragraphs what MSc dissertation you plan to undertake as part of the requirements for the MSc in Inequalities and Social Science. You should also detail what academic knowledge you would like to gain from the MSc and how this academic knowledge will contribute to your future work. Selectors want to see that you can engage with academic material in a clear and critical manner, because this is what your lecturers will expect of you during the programme. Finally, make sure to explain your wider research interests and how and why they make you a suitable candidate for the AFSEE residential stream. Now, before I move on to explain what tends to make a weaker statement, I'd like to talk briefly about the dichotomy between description and explanation. So it's very easy to write a purely descriptive statement where you mention things like, I went to this university and I studied this subject, then I spent 5 years at this company and I got this award, etc., etc. That's saying something, but it's also really not saying much at all. Explanation in a statement of academic purpose is about elaborating on the significance of professional activities you've done or modules you've studied in relation to the fellowship. So, for example, if you worked at the UN or a local NGO, don't just mention the role and move on. You should demonstrate 1 or 2 things that you learned from this experience and why you feel it has prepared you for the fellowship. Or if you feel this role made you more curious about affecting social change, then you can make that clear and explain it as one of your motivations. Selectors want to see critical reflection backed by evidence of enthusiastic engagement throughout your professional career and, in the case of the residential track, your academic career as well. So one way to avoid writing a disappointing statement is to conduct thorough research on the programme and read all programme pages carefully to identify information about the programme structure and the courses on offer. This is really, really important. I can't stress it enough. This will stop your statement from being generic, hopefully. So yeah, please avoid generic statements. Almost everyone will write about how much they're interested in addressing inequalities, whether that's gender inequality or tax injustice, but you should highlight what makes you and your professional background stand out. And you can do this by giving examples that are unique to you and your work and tying them to this information on the programme pages. I've mentioned this already, but I should reiterate that I would really recommend that you don't include excessively personal stories about your life unless they are central to your professional work and your motivations for pursuing the AFSEE program. So we don't want stories, but we want reflexivity, okay? And by reflexivity, we mean critical self-reflection, that kind of heightened sense of self-awareness of who you are, your own identity and your experiences and beliefs and knowledge, all these things that you bring to your work and can bring to the AFSEE fellowship. This is a slight personal peeve of mine, but please don't start your statement with a cliche quotation, the kind of ones from Mahatma Gandhi or Desmond Tutu. They take up very valuable space and they really add nothing to the statement, okay? And to again stress this point, while selectors don't want to read excessively long statements, they also don't want to read extremely short statements. We want to see that you've put significant effort into writing it, okay? So please try to follow the word count guide. Clear, concise, getting across all that relevant information. And the final point for statements is please make sure to proofread. If you can ask a friend or family member to help you read through it to ensure that it all makes sense and it all flows well. You should also try to read it yourselves to check for any kind of grammatical errors or spelling mistakes. Personally, I find it helpful to print things out. If you're able to print it out, then I recommend that, and reading it aloud, because that helps you kind of pick up on any inconsistencies or any errors and helps, I think, with the kind of flow of the statement as well. So next slide, please. Right, so the CV is of course very important, and alongside the statement, it's what will really make you stand out. So please treat the quality of your CV seriously. As some of you may already know, the AFSEE programs expect suitable candidates to have a minimum of 7 years of professional experience. This means you need to write your CV in a way that clearly captures the length of your professional experience. Don't write long sentences to describe your positions. Please keep it concise. Try to bullet point the most kind of important things in your role so that they really pop, they really stand out, and we can see them at a glance straight away. So your CV should ideally be 2 pages. If you can limit it to 1 page, then that's great. But anything longer than 2 pages can be a bit excessive, and often I find includes extraneous information that doesn't really help and can also kind of crowd out the relevant, important information. So yeah, don't feel like you have to describe every single aspect of every position you've ever had. Remember that the CV is an opportunity for you to, sorry, the statement is the opportunity for you to elaborate on the nature of your professional experience, okay, and its role for preparing you for the fellowship. You don't need to include that in your CV as well. If you can, tailor it to the AFSEE requirements. That's great. If you've done 15 different jobs in your life, chances are that most of them aren't going to be that relevant. So, you don't have to include them all. Just make sure you include the things that are most important, that are most relevant to the AFSEE programs, and make sure that those dates are very visible and make sense. Okay, just to talk about disappointing CVs very quickly. One type of disappointing CV is one that includes pictures. Please, no pictures of yourself or pets or anything. We don't need them. They kind of serve as a distraction and they're not relevant to the application. And similar to that, personal characteristics. We don't need to know if you're married or if you have children or anything like that. That's not relevant information, and it doesn't inform our judgment. Okay. So just to reiterate, probably the most important point here is dates and times. Please be clear about please be clear about the dates, right? We don't need the day exactly, the month and the year will suffice, but it's very, very important that we see that information and it's clear. Okay, next slide, please. So transcripts and information regarding previous study. So if you're applying to the residential track of the AFSEE program, please ensure you provide your degree transcripts. This is important for selectors to use in confirming whether you meet the academic requirement for the master's component of the fellowship. And when you're uploading your transcripts on the graduate applicant portal, please make sure to provide all pages of the transcript to allow selectors to have a kind of comprehensive view of your academic journey. So, you know, we also, if you have a degree, we want you to upload the transcripts if you're applying to the non-residential track. But you know, we're also open to applications from people who don't have a previous undergraduate degree. If you don't, please just upload a blank Word document just stating as much. You know, well, I don't have an academic degree. Just upload that document where you need to on the graduate application portal, and that will suffice. That's fine. Okay, next slide, please. So, references. When filling out the application on the admissions portal, you'll be asked to provide the name and email addresses of 2 referees, so that their official institutional email address if it's an academic referee. Once you've completed this section, your referees will automatically receive an email requesting them to submit their references through the applicant portal. When selecting referees, please be careful. Please think about who you're picking, okay? Your referees must know you well enough to write in considerable detail about your abilities and your motivations. If it's an academic referee, they can be an academic tutor or lecturer. They should know about your academic strengths and should be able to speak convincingly about them. If you're applying to the residential track, at least one academic reference is advantageous. So, you know, if you can get one, that's great. Now, say, for example, you took a social sciences degree, but you also did a couple of electives in, say, I don't know, accounting or finance or something. You may have scored fantastically in those modules, but, you know, think about, is that really the, you know, is your lecturer for that program really the best person to be able to speak about your suitability for the AFSEE program, right? So just because you performed well in that module, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the best person for the job. If you upload a professional reference, your referee should be someone like a supervisor or line manager who has worked closely with you and has a good understanding of your professional commitments and goals. Now, it's been mentioned that there's a deadline, so you know you need to contact your referees as far in advance as possible, okay? Please remember it is solely your responsibility to ensure that they submit their references before the deadline. If you apply before the application deadline, but your references are submitted past the deadline, your application will not be released for consideration until your references are received and processed. Please also make sure that your chosen referees have seen your application materials beforehand and understand why you're applying to the AFSEE programme. You might want to send them a copy of your CV or a crib sheet with your kind of major achievements and a copy of your statement to review, because you know that can really assist them, that can help them be able to speak to your strengths and your suitability. Right, next slide, please. Okay, so just to sum up, please do your research on the programme before applying. It's important that you understand what each of the fellowship tracks entails, because if you have a poor understanding of each of the programmes, it will manifest in your statement, and that's not going to work in your favour. Please also make sure you complete all aspects of the application. Be sure to contact referees beforehand so they have enough time to write your references. And please, as I said, know that it's your responsibility to notify and nudge them ahead of time to make sure that we receive everything by the deadline. Now, regarding your statements, you should proofread them after you've completed the drafts. Check multiple times that the language, the grammar, the syntax are of good quality. Keep it simple and concise. Don't add extraneous information. With every sentence, ask yourself, is it relevant? Does it serve a purpose? Now, finally, just to say there's no application fee. However, if you apply to one AFSEE programme as a first choice and a non-AFSEE programme as your second choice, you will be required to pay an application fee of £95 for the other programme. If you feel like you don't have enough funds to cover the application fee, you can request a waiver through the Graduate Admissions website. So once you've applied, make sure to check the graduate applicant portal on a regular basis for information about the progress of your application. You may not get a decision immediately after your application is released, but please don't worry, you don't need to contact the Graduate Admissions Office or the AFSEE team. We will assess your application if it is received by the deadline. And I will leave it there. Best of luck to everyone, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Tom. I will walk through the FSEE selection process and timeline next. So the application deadline this year is Friday, 16th of January at 5 p.m. UK time. And then the deadline for the references is 1 week later, 23rd of January, 5 p.m. UK time. And as Armina already said, please note that the deadlines are final and there's no flexibility. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you allow yourself enough time to complete the application, including providing all the required supporting documents. And it can also take time to request these documents from educational institutions, and many will be closed over the winter break. So we would really advise you to start the process early. And LSE will also be closed for Christmas between the 23rd December and 1st of January. And during this time, FSEE team is not available to answer any queries, so please also keep that in mind. And after the applications close, a shortlisting process takes place. And shortlisted candidates will be notified and invited to an interview in March 2026. The interviews will take place from mid to late March, and the shortlisted candidates will receive their final decision by mid-April. And we will introduce our new fellows on our website and social media channels in June. And again, I want to stress that there's no flexibility on these application deadlines, so please make sure you have submitted your application by 16th of January, 5 p.m. UK time, and that your referees have submitted their references by 23rd of January, because if your application is incomplete when the application closes, it unfortunately won't be considered. Next slide, please. So before we move into the Q&A section of the webinar, I just want to remind you how to contact FSEE team. I will be running FSEE Zoom drop-in sessions every Thursday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. on Zoom, starting from next week until the LSE Christmas closure, to answer any applicant queries. And you can register to these sessions on our website. And I believe there's also a link to register in the chat as well. And you can get in touch with FSEE team via email. Or if you have any questions about the fellowship experience, please get in touch with the FSEE ambassadors, who are our senior fellows. You can also subscribe to FSEE and International Inequalities Institute newsletters for updates about the FSEE program and information about the III research and events. And links to those are also provided on our website and in the chat. And finally, don't forget to follow us on social media. All our channels and links to those are on the slides. And I think that's about it. Over to you, Armina.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you, Tom. So I'm now going to start taking the questions in the chat. And if there's anything, I will hand over to one of the colleagues. So the first question comes from Mariami, and the question is, do we need to submit a project proposal? So if you are applying for the non-residential track, yes, you need to explain what your proposed project is. And also, if you are applying to the residential track, it's also a good idea to indicate the topic that you are working on. So that those are part of the statement of academic purpose that Tom mentioned. The second question is, will AI be used in the selection process, and what do we need to keep in mind to not get excluded by the algorithms? So I can say from the AFSEE side, we don't use AI, but Tom, is there anything you'd like to add from GAO's perspective?
No, we don't use AI. There is a human going through each and every one of these applications.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so humans will be going through the applications at all stages, and I think Tom already covered the information that we recommend that you cover and include. So the next question is from Mergen, and they say that they're taking an IELTS test. How can I send the score since I have submitted my fellowship application? Tom, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, sure. You can upload that information in the graduate applicant portal. It's not completely necessary that you do it straight away, but if you go onto the portal, that's the information is requested from you there.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Daniel. Is there a way to provide more than 2 references? So this is an interesting question. I would say, we require only 2 references. And for equity purposes, I would probably say it should be only 2. But I don't know, Tom, is there a GAO kind of Graduate Admissions Office position on this?
There is, yeah. It's just the 2. We only want
It's just
2.
the 2.
We want it,
Okay.
like you said, it's about being equitable.
Okay.
Any other kind of information, won't be considered as part of the application.
Thank you. That's what I assumed. The next question is from Kayo. If one is not from an English-speaking country but has an MA degree or a PhD from English-speaking universities in non-English-speaking countries, is the language test still required? I believe it is, but I'm going to defer to, again, Tom here on this.
So if you have an undergraduate degree of 3 years from an English-speaking country, or a taught postgraduate master's or a PhD from an English-speaking country, you shouldn't, in most instances, have to do an English language test. But please do check the LSE English language website for more specific catered information.
Thank you. The next question is from an anonymous attendee. Do you give priority to participants who have had limited opportunities to participate in the seminars abroad? Having a degree obtained abroad, does it decrease the chances to be selected? So let me start from this perspective that our program is very committed to widening participation. And so we do look at very closely to see where we can support applicants who have not had other fellowship opportunities or opportunities for study abroad. However, having obtained a degree abroad or in the UK does not automatically rule out any applicants. We do look at it case by case basis, but it's important if you've had, multiple fellowships, or if you've had or are completing a postgraduate degree at present. It's important, if you're applying to the residential track and already possess a postgraduate degree, an MSc or an MA, to explain why is it that you're applying for further study and another degree. So there aren't any automatic disqualifications, but it has to be justified in the statement of academic purpose, and why, if you possess a degree, why you're applying for another one. The next question is, can one of my beneficiaries who has benefited from my impact work be a referee? Oh, that would be slightly unusual in the sense that there is, and please, Tom, come in and comment, but my perspective would be, as Tom was saying, you need a reference from someone who has worked with you, is a supervisor or was an academic supervisor or mentor. But if you are asking for a beneficiary, is there a power imbalance between you and the beneficiary? So I would be slightly concerned about that power imbalance, and so I don't know. That's my perspective. Tom or Sarah, if you have any perspectives on that.
I would say the same, I think, and also they might be able to speak to the kind of direct impact of your work, but they won't be able to speak to your abilities in a working environment, and that's really what we're looking for. So just on that note, I would avoid doing so.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Kimberly. For the non-residential track for my project, what is the timeline for completion? That's a good question. So the timeline for completion, because the non-residential track now is awarded a postgraduate certificate, we have very strict deadlines, and the deadline is in mid-August. And now we understand that sometimes projects can have further outputs, such as dissemination, further sharing with communities. But there has to be an element of the project that is submitted to meet the requirements of the postgraduate certificate that is to be submitted in mid-August of the academic year in which you're doing your study. So I think that's worth keeping in mind in terms of the design and the feasibility. But as I said, there are projects that then have other outputs that come out after that formal submission is met, because the project is assessed as part of the awarding of the postgraduate certificate. Sarah, is there anything you wanted to add on that, or is that cover?
Yeah, just to stress that because we are quite strict with the submission deadline of mid-August. Just to highlight that.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, the next question is from Mubashira, and the question is, could you please clarify in the case of non-residential track whether the budget proposal can include monthly subsistence, or is it only for field travel? So we do have eligible and non-eligible costs, and monthly subsistence, unfortunately, is not part of that. It is for project-related expenses, including not just field travel, but for instance, transcriptions of interviews, or other kinds of, for instance, hosting a roundtable with respondents, things like that can be covered, photocopying any surveys. So there is a list. We have a project handbook that lists the eligible costs, and monthly subsistence is not one of them. Sarah, is there anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, just to highlight that if you, for example, do a documentary as your project, you can rent out the equipment for the filmmaking. So we have quite broad range of what you can do with the money.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, the next question is, does the 1,500 word limit include or exclude the references? So here the 1,500 word limit, I'm assuming, refers to the statement of academic purpose. Tom, I think it probably excludes references, but over to you.
Yeah, I would say it excludes them, but I think try not to think of this too much as an academic proposal, and instead think of it as a statement of academic purpose. So, if you do need to cite scholarly work, or if that's part of say your dissertation plans, to set out your dissertation plans, then in-text citations are kind of fine, and you can have a few endnotes, and that's absolutely okay. We wouldn't penalize you for that.
Thank you. But I think that's an important point. This isn't an academic essay or a paper, but it is a statement of academic purpose. So the next question is I have over 8 years of professional experience. So I think I've answered this question in terms of eligibility, where we are, as a program, not ruling out individuals who already obtain or already have degrees, postgraduate degrees. But what we want to understand is the motivation for applying for another degree, particularly if you've just earned your master's degree in the UK in 2022. Why is it that you are seeking? How will this, additional master's degree help you in achieving your goals that you are unable to achieve with the one that you already possess? So think about that. And particularly, again, there is that element of widening participation, because this is a fully funded master's program that we are offering access to. So it's really important to hear that motivation and the explanation of how this additional degree is required for you to achieve your goals in addressing social and economic inequalities. The next question is, it's quite similar about, if someone has a master's degree from LSE, please refer to what I've just said to the previous question. This is a question from Ms. Soze. Do you need a high school diploma? Well, if we are talking about the non-residential track, then not necessarily, because, we are, again, more flexible. But if we are talking about the residential track, yes, you would require a high school diploma in addition to an undergraduate degree at minimum. So yes, an undergraduate degree. At minimum, I meant the high school diploma. This question from Naomi is, if you have an undergraduate and master's, which transcript do you upload? Tom, is it?
Yeah, so on the portal, when you come to put in the details of your academic career so far, you'll put in your 2 separate degrees, your undergraduate and your master's, and you'll be able to upload transcripts from both. We will require transcripts from both.
Thank you for that. That's important, because people should plan to contact those institutions from which they have transcripts to seek from. And as Sara said, it's really important that you do that in advance, because it can take time. The next question is, can you choose not to mention an academic degree for the non-residential track? I don't understand why you would do that, because having an academic degree does not penalize you. So yeah, I don't understand why you would choose not to mention. And it's best to be honest and mention it, I think. The next question is from Patrick. Should the CV have the referees who are nominated elsewhere in the application system? I don't think they need to list the referees on the CV. You just need to input the names and the contact details of the referees in the portal where it's required. The next question is from Margarita. Do I need to submit academic transcripts for the non-residential application? So if you have an academic degree or academic degrees in the plural and are applying for the non-residential track, you must submit those transcripts. If you do not possess an academic transcript, as was mentioned earlier, you can submit in writing a document that says that you are applying for the non-residential track and you don't possess a degree, and that will be sufficient.
Can I just jump in there?
Yes, please.
And say that if you do have an undergraduate degree and you're applying for the non-residential stream, don't just not include it for whatever reason, because there can potentially be visa implications there. So it's important that you do include this information. That's
really an important point. Thank you, Tom. The next question, I left my master's program years back. What if I can't find the right academic referee? That is a challenge, which we do understand. Perhaps, Tom, do you have any advice on that? You're on mute, Tom.
There we go. How to have at least 1 point. We come across this quite a lot. Don't worry too much about it, because we completely understand that these people haven't seen you in years, perhaps, and they might not feel able to speak to your ability anymore. So what I would advise is maybe trying to find a professional reference who can speak to your kind of transferable academic skills, your ability to kind of think critically and perhaps undertake research. So I would go that route rather than going back to a university lecturer from decades ago, because that might not be particularly helpful.
Thank you, Tom. That's very good advice. The next question from David is regarding the requirements that one must be 7 years, one must have 7 years of experience to apply. Just reading the question. I'm not sure I understand that question. Your current job does not have to be 7 years. You have to have overall work experience of addressing social and economic inequalities. And by work experience, it doesn't have to be in a necessarily, like, let's say, working in an NGO. It could be working in a government ministry. It could be in a social enterprise. It could be in a grassroots group. It is work undertaken, effort undertaken to address social and economic inequalities, and that has to be a minimum of 7 years. So that is a non-negotiable requirement that we have, but it doesn't have to be in the last or the current job 7 years. Next question from an anonymous attendee. I have been out of work for 6 years and kept in touch with colleagues and have been my references. Well, yes, but I guess it would be important for you to explain what you've been doing in that meantime for us to understand and how that relates to your experience. The next question, also from an anonymous attendee. If a selected reference, i.e. a direct manager, is not able to submit the reference, are we able to have backup references? So the point about additional references was addressed earlier. We only accept 2 references. So you need to ensure that your selected 2 referees have agreed to provide. So if you contact your direct manager and they're not able to submit the reference, then contact another person who is able to and input that individual's name. But that's not, having more than 2. Question, can an AFSEE alumnus be a reference? If they know your work professionally, then they can be a reference and are able to speak about your abilities. Then yes. Next question from Viviana is, if you are selected and something unexpected happens, can it be postponed for next year? We tend to look at deferral requests on an individual case-by-case basis. So there isn't a blanket response I can give, but it would have to be taken into consideration on the case. Next question from Jacob. The question is, what are the main elements that form the criteria for selection of the cohorts? What is the AFSEE team looking for in applicants? And this would be helpful to understand how aligned we are with the program. Well, we are looking for individuals who can demonstrate at least 7 years of committed work to addressing social and or economic inequalities, and that they can demonstrate a clear motivation about why they have an interest in AFSEE, and moreover, how AFSEE becoming part of the AFSEE program would benefit them and support them in their work to address social and economic inequalities. We are looking, for instance, in the non-residential track, some clear ideas around the project, as well as on the residential program. We are interested in hearing about courses you want to study, modules you want to undertake, or, things you want to learn. So it's really about demonstrating both your fit, how it would benefit you, but also the motivation about what you would gain from the program, and how that would enhance your ability to work on social and economic inequality. So those are the criteria that we are looking for. The next question is from Solomon. If you're applying for both residential and non-residential, does the statement have to be different for each? Yes, in the sense that for the non-residential track, we would be looking for the project to be explained in detail. So that would make for a difference. And you don't have to pay for those, applications. As Tom mentioned, applying to AFSEE, either track or both tracks, doesn't have a cost. That's free. But if you apply for one of the AFSEE programs and a non-AFSEE, then you would have to pay for the non-AFSEE unless you apply for a waiver, as Tom mentioned. The next question is from Neela. Can one's active involvement in a political organization that promotes social justice and for the marginalized community be stated as an important aspect in the statement of purpose? Yes, of course, you can mention that work that you've done if it directly relates to addressing social and economic inequalities, and explain how that relates to, let's say, other work that you've done that is let's say on a professional level. But we're looking for kind of the whole story of the work that you've done over at least 7 years. The next question from Geeti is, do I have to be located for the whole year, or can I travel from another city like Oxford? If so, how much would the stipend be to cover living and travel cost? Is the stipend tax-free? Okay, so if you are choosing the residential track, then the expectation is that you are resident in London, so you can undertake the master's program. We do provide a stipend, and I'm going to turn to you, Sara, about the amount of the stipend for the next academic year. Of course, you can choose, to live outside of London, but that's not an additional expense that AFSEE would cover. You would have to cover that out of the stipend that you would receive. Sara?
Yes, so the stipend is 23,000 for the full year.
Thank you. So if you chose to live in Oxford or another city and then commute to London, if you're on the residential track, you'd have to cover those living expenses and the transportation expenses from the stipend. That would not be extra. And Sara, can you clarify if the stipend is tax-free? I believe it is, but
I believe it is as well, yes.
Thank you, Sara. Okay, next question from anonymous attendee. I work for an NGO and was considering the fellowship alongside my NGO work. Well, it depends on which track, because we have many non-residential fellows who do continue their work in an NGO and doing the fellowship in a non-residential capacity. If, however, you are asking whether you want to continue full-time work and to do the MSc, I think there are going to be certain restrictions in terms of hours that can be worked, and moreover, it is a very, very intense MSc program, and moreover, AFSEE itself has requirements alongside the MSc. So I think full-time work and the residential track would be extremely very difficult. And as Sara mentioned, we have very strict deadlines, and deadlines that would be related to full-time employment, requests for extensions and things like that would not be looked upon favorably, because we have made it very clear from the start that it is a very intense program and it requires a full-time commitment. although there are options, and I think people do sometimes take on part-time work, but not full-time. Can my last year application be used this year? Well, my answer to that would be if your last year's application was not successful, then perhaps you want to update it and improve it. Because if it wasn't successful last year, the chances are it will not be successful this year. The next question is from Isis. Is a past program coordinator or supervisor of a fellowship a suitable reference considering one worked with them closely on an important project? Again, I think going back to Tom's point, the point is we want to hear from a referee who is aware of your work, about your skills and your capabilities, and can write a letter in support of that. Tom, is that accurate representation?
Yeah, absolutely. I should really stress that we're not trying to trip you up here.
Yeah.
We're not demanding like an academic referee and you get a referee from your program coordinator, and I'm not going to go, aha, no, not the right person. Like we said, we want an academic referee because they'll be able to speak to certain skills just as a professional one can. So if this person can speak to those skills, then that's perfectly fine.
Thank you. The next question we've answered about references. So now moving to the question from Ankita. Could you please share a bit more about the type of person you are looking for? I'm from the UK. Okay, I'm not going to comment on specific kind of eligibility just based on this. We judge each application on its own merits, and we're not looking at particular kind of identity characteristics. So what we are looking for are individuals who have the 7 years experience minimum, who can demonstrate their commitment to tackling social and economic inequalities, who can demonstrate an interest and motivation for joining the AFSEE program, and how they would benefit from that. So I think please think about those things and about how that refers to you. So yeah, I'm not going to comment on individual kind of characteristics. The next question is from Camilla. Do you accept fellows with families? We don't, as Tom mentioned, we're not seeking any information on personal status, marital status, or family status. So fellows, of course, can apply who have families. There are issues, though, with visas. I think the current legislation is that on top master's programs, students are not permitted to bring dependents. I think that is the guidance that I read recently. Don't quote me on that. It's probably best to look at the visa guidance offered by LSE, but there are those restrictions, not from the AFSEE program, but that are linked to UK immigration rules. So please have a look at that. Next question is from an anonymous attendee. I have never had to do a research question. I want to do the non-residential track. Okay. That's not a question. Next, how many people will be selected for the 26-27 cohort? What is the nature of the interview process? Panel interview. Does it include fellows in their active fellowship year and/or senior fellows? Okay, thank you for that question. So our cohorts tend to be between 18 and a maximum of 20 in extraordinary years, but we aim for 18 generally, and those would be equally divided, the 18 of residential and non-residential. So that's kind of the magic number that we select. The interview process includes a panel of AFSEE team members who will ask all of the applicants the same questions. The panel interview does not include any fellows in their active fellowship year or senior fellows, so it is team members who select. But that's a good question. Question, I have considerable professional experience. Well, I don't think, we we would necessarily rule anyone out who has too much experience. The question is, can you, in your statement of academic purpose, explain how, if you feel that you are so senior, why would you benefit from this fellowship, right? How would this fellowship help you to achieve your goals that you are not able to achieve given your level of seniority? That's the important bit to explain. So it's not immediately ruling you out because of the particular position you hold, but it's requiring you to explain your motivation and how you would benefit. Next question from Faustino. I would like to make sure about the residential and non-residential options. Okay, very quick clarification. Residential is that the fellows who are selected move to London, undertake the MSc in Inequalities and Social Science, hosted by the Department of Sociology, alongside doing the AFSEE, 4 AFSEE modules across an academic year. The non-residential fellows stay in their home countries. They only come to London for the in-person AFSEE modules, and they receive up to £10,000 funding to do a project, and they earn a postgraduate certificate. A PG cert is awarded, which is 2 units of credit. I would urge you to please look at our other video. The chat has the link to that, which explains the difference of the two more clearly. Thank you. Question from Leah. The program is designed for mid-careers, for those who are 20 years into our career still with... Well, I think this is a good question of what is mid. So again, as I answered the question previously, if you feel that you have experience or you have 20 years of experience, it's important, it's incumbent on you to explain why you are applying to this program and how you think it would benefit you and your journey. So that's what we're looking for, rather than saying, you know, for us to define who is mid or who is too senior. We want you to explain, as the applicant, why is it that you feel that this program is something that you want to be part of. Question from Maya. Question is, again, I think I've answered this question about who can be a referee. I'm not going to repeat myself. Please refer to the responses already given by myself and Tom. Next question is from Sarith. Is it better to have a project ongoing alongside the application to strengthen it? Well, you know, if you have a project that you want to build on, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But, you know, if there is a project that's already completed or near completion, then you have to explain in your statement of academic purpose about why you're applying to AFSEE to complete it if you already got funding or, you know, are already doing this. Moreover, because the individuals who are on the non-residential track earn a postgraduate certificate, they are individually assessed, right? It's an individual award. So if this is, you're applying in the name of an NGO that's already doing the project, we are slightly concerned about that because, you know, how would you credit those other individuals who are working on it? And we want to ensure that this is your own work that's being assessed. So for that reason, we ask for fellows to develop their own projects because it is assessed for the PG cert, and they are individually assessed, not as a collective group. And we just need to make sure that that's your work and so forth that we can assess you on, so that we award you as an individual the postgraduate certificate. Next question from Rowena. Sorry, I wanted to... Yes, you know, if you can demonstrate critical thinking and evidence, you can definitely put that in the application. Yes. The next question is from Augustina. Is Duolingo English test enough for the application? and then I could take the official tests. So Sara, I think you mentioned that they don't need to take the test at the point of application, but if they are get through and get an award, then they would be required to submit. But Tom, does the school accept Duolingo English test, or is it IELTS?
Only in there have to be extenuating circumstances, and then you have to supplement it by taking a course with LSE's Language Centre, and you can apply through the graduate applicant portal to do so. But there have to be extenuating circumstances explaining why you can't take one of the preferred tests.
And just to be clear, cost cannot be an extenuating circumstance, because AFSEE has offered to cover the cost. So if that's the case, then we would urge you to do the IELTS, unless there is another extenuating circumstance, and that would be looked on case-by-case basis. Next question is around language again. Do you consider Nigeria as an English-speaking country? Tom, I think there is some information on the website around this.
This is difficult, because I'm afraid it's not us who makes the rules on this. It's the UK Visa Office, and unfortunately, they have a list of countries that they deem to be officially English-speaking countries. So you'll have to check the list of UKVI English-speaking countries to see if yours is on there, and if it isn't, then I'm afraid that you will have to take an IELTS test. Not because we want you to, but because the Visa Office will make it a condition of your visa.
Thank you, Tom. Next question from anonymous attendee. I want to start my PhD next year. Well, good luck, but you cannot apply as a current ongoing PhD student. So that's not eligible. Current PhD students are not eligible. So no, it's not eligible. Next question. Fourth year undergraduate student. I have part-time experience in social inequalities and justice sector since my high school. I admire the ambition. I would like to say that, it's really important. It's a very competitive program. So it's very important to show robust experience of 7 years. So we don't have upper or lower age limits, but we are looking for 7 clear years of experience. And, so it's important to just bear that in mind. And if it's part-time volunteering or internship, that wouldn't make for the strongest of applications when we have individuals who have more robust years kind of experience. So perhaps wait a few years, Arza, and then consider applying. Next is from Solomon. I have studied this. I think this goes back to the point that Tom just made about in relation to Nigeria, so we won't repeat that, but please refer to that UKVI list and the list of countries that require English language tests. So question from Georgi, do you have any specific priority areas or themes? Our specific priority areas and themes are around social and economic inequalities, and they can be, any aspect of social and economic inequality. So it's about making the case of why you are, working on that topic that you are on social and economic inequality. Okay, Tom, this is a very specific question about transcripts to be in landscape overview. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm not too sure what that means.
Okay, we'll skip that question then. Next question. Okay, so this is a question from Francisca about, getting a reference. Does it have to be with someone they have worked for a long time? I think the point here is who knows your work the best, who can speak to your skills, your abilities, your knowledge the best. So if you've worked intensely with a supervisor for a shorter period of time and they know your work and can speak to it, then get the reference from them. I think Tom made a point that I want to reiterate, is that we're not trying to trip you up. We are really looking for references who can speak well about your abilities, your motivation, and your fit. So it's really about you using your judgment to think about who is it that you can ask and who will grant you, a reference. So that's the important thing to keep in mind. So the next question is, I think if you have put the AFSEE application as your first choice program, that is important for us to consider it first. Tom, do you want to say something about first choice, second choice from a selector's perspective?
So your first choice application, if it is successful, your second choice application will not be released for consideration.
Okay.
Unless you request it through the graduate portal. Now, because obviously at AFSEE that there is, there is a period of time from the application deadline to that final decision being made. That might mean that your application for the program to which you're applying for the Chevening will not be considered in time for the Chevening award. So please keep that in mind when you're applying. Okay, this might mean that you won't be considered for the Chevening.
Thank you, Tom. Next question is from Nina. I saw on the website that some projects have been collective. Can I do a project in collaboration with the organization for which I work? So you reference here the Atlantic Equity Challenge. That is not a project that current fellows undertake. That is an initiative that is only open to senior fellows who are AFSEE alumni. The individual project has to be an individual piece of work. Because you are assessed as an individual. Now, if you want to do it in collaboration with your employer has to, kind of grant that, but you are ultimately responsible for the piece of work, and you cannot say, oh, my colleague didn't deliver, or that's never going to be taken as an extenuating circumstance or as kind of a request for an extension. And that's why, because this is an assessed piece of work that is part of the postgraduate certificate, that's why we emphasize the individual aspect. So the next question is from an anonymous attendee. Do you have sample project write-ups, descriptions? No, we don't offer that. There are data protection rules that we cannot offer that kind of things, but we do have the drop-in sessions that Sara is running, that you can ask questions. We have videos, including this, in this series, we had one last month that talks about the program. There is a video that a colleague of ours made that we've shared in the chat. So please, look at the available resources, but we don't offer applications from applicants. Do you need to include a budget in your proposal? No, not at this stage. We're not looking for a budget at this stage. We're just looking for your idea. So the next question is from Zareth. Would other short programs with universities be okay to be submitted? I don't understand the question. I'm going to skip that one. I'm not sure what you're asking, Zareth. The next question is, do non-residential track have to do field work, and will the budget cover? How do I craft a research question? Because I lost the question. Sorry. Okay. How do I craft a research question? Because I'm, so I would be wanting to explore. So non-residential track, you can decide, if you want to do empirical field work, right? Or you could do a desk-based study. You could do a series of podcasts, you could do a film. It depends on what the project idea is. We would work with you to help you develop a research question. That's where the mentoring from AFSEE comes in. So don't feel that you have to articulate, a perfect research question, but we want to hear your topic and to have an understanding of what is it that you want to study. But we will mentor you and support you in that crafting. This is a question I'm going to pass to Tom. This is from anonymous attendee. It says, I have an incomplete degree. Do I upload the transcripts?
Good question. I mean, there's nothing to say you have to, but would it help your application? You know, does the degree experience that you do have, the modules that you take, and do they speak to your ability to be successful in this program? Think of it like that.
Thank you. And the next question is, do you allow unofficial transcripts to be uploaded? I believe the answer is that it has to be official transcripts. Okay. The next question is from Bridget. I started my application process, but I'm not able to access my account anymore. And then I also reached out to my references to inform them about the application. I'm wondering whether you're going to reach out to them directly, or do I have to get letters from them? So we do reach out directly for the letters, but I don't understand why you don't have access. And maybe, is there I'm sure there's a helpline, Tom, that.
Yeah, there is. There's multiple ways to get in touch with the Graduate Admissions Office.
Okay.
Perhaps the best one at this stage is to submit a question through the knowledge base on the Graduate Admissions website. Please include your student number as well. It just makes the whole process a lot easier, and the team will look into it.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, I have an undergraduate degree with a second class lower and an MSc with a strong upper. I want to apply for the non-residential track. Yes, that's absolutely fine. How do you assess applicants with previous postgraduate degree? I've already answered that question. What if applicants did not finish their undergraduate? Okay, this is a question. I think you would, if you've had to flee your country as a refugee or as an asylum seeker and you don't have access to the transcript, please explain that, and then we will obviously take that into consideration. Tom, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just please get in touch. That's absolutely fine. Just please reach out so we know.
Yeah.
And there might be something that we'll be able to do our end. But yeah, don't worry, you won't be penalized for that.
Yes, thank you. Please get in touch. Thank you. The next question is from Chantal. Is AFSEE interested in projects that seek to generate an impact by consolidating? That is very specific, and I'm afraid I'm not going to answer that on a recorded webinar, Chantal. Because I can, yeah. Is there a question from an anonymous attendee? Is there any guideline for the project proposal for the non-residential track? Are you expecting candidates maybe having higher degrees to write a professional proposal? Okay, we are not, the statement of academic purpose is 1,500 words. We're not expecting all 1,500 words to cover the proposal. So we want to see, you as a candidate, as an applicant, and the proposal is one aspect of that statement. So we're not looking for, a polished proposal that has a theory of change and, a log frame. So do not feel that pressure. What we want is the idea of your project, about why is it that you want to join AFSEE and what is it you want to accomplish and how can the AFSEE program support you. Next question from an anonymous attendee is, how many candidates will be considered for the interview? This varies year by year, but it's generally around 40, 45 candidates, sometimes 50, but yeah, those are the ones, it's around that number. Anonymous attendee, I think we've answered that you should list all of your diplomas, all of your higher education degrees. I don't understand this question. Is it important to remain in my own country? Will I lose my chance of getting selected for the AFSEE program if I have to move abroad? We do not look at that where you are applying from. So you don't, that's a residency requirement is not something that we consider. Next question from Chirop. Do you keep the applicant in copy when contacting referees? No, I don't think we do, Tom. I don't think.
I'm not
I mean,
sure
I've
I follow
received
the question.
requests to put in references, and no one is ever copied from the
Oh no! Oh, is that
students.
okay? No, no, we don't. No,
Okay.
we just contact the referee directly. The
Yeah,
applicant is not
yeah.
CC'd in
The
there.
applicant is not CC'd. Okay, the next question from Nana. Can an ongoing project which the applicant has made significant impact? Well, again, is this just the same project that you're doing with other people, or is this a new project? And why should, in the ongoing project, why apply for AFSEE if you're already doing this work, and you've got quite far with your organization or your team? So you have to kind of explain to us. I don't want to answer, give a blanket answer. It's about you explaining what is the project, what is the status of that project, and so forth. So it's really important to give context. I'm not able to answer just with that. I'm graduating this year. James, as I've already answered, it's about 7 years of experience, so I can't respond. I don't know if you are, if you've got the 7 years of experience just from your question. Question from Kimberly again. We are encouraging applications, Kimberly, from individuals from the Global South, but we are not penalizing individuals who do not live in the Global South. So we look at each application individually and, and judge it based on its merit. I'm gonna, next question. Is the £10,000 allotment, and it's £10,000, not $10,000, anonymous attendee, which does make a difference, taxed for non-residential fellows? I believe that's not taxed because that's not earning income. That is basically expenses. Anonymous attendee, next anonymous attendee, can you please restate again the advisable timeline for the project? Does the project need to be completed within the active fellowship year? Sure, I'll repeat that. Essentially, the project is assessed as part of your postgraduate certificate. To be awarded the postgraduate certificate, you are required to submit it by mid-August. The specific deadline will be published in advance. And you can, of course, have an element of the project that, is disseminated later. So for instance, let's say your project was, I'm going to write an academic article. Now, we're not expecting that in that year you will do the research, write the academic article, and have it published by mid-August. But what we would want to see, what we would require would be a draft of the academic article. But we would understand that if you were to submit to a journal, that would take time. Or let's say you were to produce a series of podcasts. We would expect the podcast episodes to be finished for submission by mid-August, but you could promote them through different events, through your social media channels after that submission deadline. So there is going to be a deadline of a certain element of your submission of the project in mid-August. Next question. Okay, that is a very, very specific question, which I am unable to answer about, the specific country and the registration. Perhaps you can write to us and then we can address that question. The next question is, I have an expired IELTS certificate. This is a good question about, expired IELTS certificates. I don't want to kind of assume that would still be eligible for them. Tom, do you know?
No, it's not. It needs to be in date. Again, please check the English language requirements
Okay.
website to check.
Okay, thank you.
And also for your degree, it depends where your degree was. Again, it has to be a UK VI majority English speaking country.
Thank you. Yeah, that's important. The next question is, Can you please provide more tips on how best to present and describe our proposed project? Explain the topic, what kind of social or economic inequality it's addressing, why you want to do that topic, how it links to your work. It's not prescriptive. It's about you thinking about what is it that you need to describe to us about the project, because I don't want to kind of give you a bullet point list, but we also have a video that you can look at that gives further details. The next question from Yifan, the portal requests that you enter the graduation dates for your previous degrees. It only provides the graduation month. Tom, I think they could probably just put
Yeah, I think the first is fine, but you can go through your Instagram photos or whatever to see what day your graduation was on. That's the day that we're after. But I mean, if you can't, then the first that's fine.
That's fine. That will not be the hurdle people fall on. Let me just, that is not going to be the deciding factor. Question from anonymous attendee. I'm well aware that we have 3 minutes left and 4 questions, so I'll try to be quick. What's the difference between MSc and equality with certificate? It's a big difference. The MSc is a master's, and the postgraduate certificate is not a master's. It comes with fewer units of credit, so there are completely different awards. A question from Zareth, for the non-residential program to support the academic journey, would short courses from university be valid to be mentioned? I mean, you can mention those courses, yes, but I don't think we would be looking for short course transcripts, and most short courses don't have transcripts as far as I'm aware as well. Next question, Faiza Fadili, do you contact references upon full application, or just as soon as one completes the reference section without necessarily having completed full application to the end? That's a good question, Tom.
Well, contact them as early as possible, and they are able to submit before you submit your application.
Okay.
The earlier, the better.
Okay. And final question, is TOEFL considered in place of IELTS? Tom?
Yeah, yeah. The TOEFL is one of the award granting bodies that we accept.
Excellent. Okay, we are at the end of the questions and at the end of our time on this webinar. Apologies to those whose questions were not answered. We encourage you to please go on our website, where we have a very detailed and comprehensive frequently asked questions section that will provide answers to those questions that we perhaps didn't have time for. We do have the recording of the previous video, which was about the application and the program. Sara has mentioned other methods of getting in touch. Sara, do you want to just go over those very quickly again at the very end about when you're having the drop-ins?
Yeah, could we get the slide up, please?
That's the slide with the drop-in info.
But yeah, in the meantime, I can just mention, so I will be running the drop-in sessions for prospective applicants from next Thursday until the Christmas break, every Thursday from 1 p.m. to 2:30 on Zoom, and you can register for those drop-ins on our website.
Thank you so much, Sara. And I think we've got I think it's the previous slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So here's the information. You can attend an AFSEE Zoom drop-in session, as Sara mentioned. You can write to us on the email addresses listed there. You can connect with us on our socials, and you can sign up to hear from us on the newsletters. I want to thank my colleagues who spoke on the panel, but also those who are working in the background. Thank you so much for your time and your work. I also would like to thank all of the attendees at this webinar. Thank you for your interest in the AFSEE program. Please do consider applying if this is a fellowship that you think would benefit you and support your work in addressing social and economic inequalities. So I'm now going to draw this webinar to a close and to say goodbye, everyone.